This video is going to take you through your assignment for the sonnet expository paragraph, and I've written an example for you so you can see what I'm looking for in your paragraph. So what you're going to do first is choose one of Shakespeare's sonnets that we studied. You have two things you can't choose. One is the poem that you chose for the sonnet analysis assignment, and the other is Sonnet 98 because that's the poem on which I base my example. So you've got several choices here. I want you to answer the following question in an expository paragraph. You have three structures you have to use: a positive phrase, present or past participial phrase, and absolute phrase. And then, of course, I want you to think about concision and using action verbs as well. You can see how I'm going to grade it by looking at Packet 5, page 3. So let's look at the question then. What is the question that you're answering? The question is, what is the function of the turn in the couplet? In other words, what does the turn do to the poem, to the poem's meaning? How does the couplet work? So I want you to explore that in a paragraph. So here's how I do that in mine. Now what I'm going to do first is just read it through all the way from the beginning to the end. Part of my reason for doing this also is to teach you the poem because we haven't talked about the poem together. So this is sort of like an audio lecture via example paragraph on understanding Sonnet 98. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to read through it. In Sonnet 98, the couplet cements the speaker's praise of the beloved as the paragon of all beauty, in whose absence moments of delight become moments of melancholy. It does so through the archetype of the seasons played upon throughout the poem, in which spring represents joyous rebirth, summer perfection, and winter death. In the first quatrain, the speaker sets the beloved's absence in the spring, a season so wonderful that heavy Saturn laughed and leaped. Associated with old age, here the Roman deity Saturn dances youthfully, his energy emphasizing the miracle of this particular April. But the speaker cannot participate in this enjoyment, as he makes clear in the second quatrain. The lays of birds and the sweet smell of different flowers, metonymies representing the season's splendor, do not move him, do not inspire a summer story. This shift to summer, the season associated with perfection, suggests that without the beloved, the height of beauty cannot be experienced. Unable to wonder at the lily's white, or praise the deep vermilion in the rose, phrases rich in imagery and euphony that emphasize the flower's loveliness, the speaker then explains why such admiration confounds him. They are mere figures of delight drawn from you, you pattern of all those. Here, the speaker transfers his esteem to the person he addresses, defining the beloved as the paragon of the beauty they only reflect. Now comes the couplet. Yet seemed it winter still, and you away, as with your shadow I with these did play. The turn here shifts the poem from spring's delights to winter's death. The speaker remains in metaphorical winter because spring is a mere shadow of the absent beloved, an insubstantial form, a reflection of the true substance. Thus the couplet, expressing the speaker's sorrow at the separation, lauds the beloved as the ideal of all delight and beauty, a tremendous compliment. Now, 2 points. Point number 1 is notice I've marked my sentence structures. I've used lots of a positive phrase. I've used one absolute phrase. I've used a past participial phrase, several present participial phrases. You only need use one of each. I just want to show you how often I use them. They're so central to a varied style. Secondly, notice that I take you through the entire poem in my paragraph, because you can't explain the effect of the couplet unless you go through the 3 quatrains and how the couplet turns on them. So you need to do that. And so you'll be organizing this paragraph by time, and you'll see that I do that. In the first quatrain, the speaker does this and this. The second quatrain, so on, so on. Where else did I change that? Did I indicate that? I'm sorry. I skipped through here. The second quatrain. Here. Now comes the couplet. You see? So I indicate through the word glue that I use, then I'm moving through the poem and I'm taking my reader along with me in my analysis of how all the ideas in the poem culminate and are turned and changed by this couplet. Now I have here a chart. I don't want you to do this, but I pulled it out and put it in a chart so you can see how my paragraph follows the standard expository paragraph form. And so we have the kind of sentence that it is, the sentence itself, and then a little comment on what the sentence is doing. I hope that this will be helpful to you because you see, I've thought through this. I didn't just start writing randomly. It's never effective to turn in something that you just started writing randomly. Sometimes writing randomly just to get your thoughts on the paper is a really good way to begin. And if you're one of those people that benefits from that, by all means, free write away. But you have to then pull the good stuff out of that and structure it in an expository paragraph for it to be intelligible to your reader. All right, so sentence one then is the topic sentence, TS for short. And that has to answer the question directly. Think of it as like a mini thesis controlling the whole paragraph. So the question is, what is the function of the turn in the couplet? So I have to say what it is, and I do that. I also use the name of the poem. In Sonnet 98, the couplet cements the speaker's praise of the beloved as the paragon of all beauty, in whose absence moments of delight become moments of melancholy. Notice in here that I've talked about the meaning of the poem, because the couplet has everything to do with the meaning of the poem. And so you really can't avoid that. Notice also I have active verbs. The couplet cements the speaker's praise of the beloved, and so on. All right, so here we have the topic sentence addresses the question, defining the sonnet's meaning in relation to the couplet, which is what I want your topic sentence to do. Then I have my second sentence, which is a transition into my blending, and it also is a discussion of a literary device. So I have this. It does so through the archetype of the seasons played upon throughout the poem, in which spring represents joyous rebirth, summer perfection, and winter death. So I define the archetypes of the seasons, and then I'm going to apply that to the poem in my analysis. Notice that I have word glue here. It does so. The sonnet does what I just said this way, through this archetype. All right, so here we have the transition sentence contains word glue tying to the previous sentence, right? It does so. And it also prepares us to go through the poem, played upon throughout the poem. That's the phrase that does that. And it defines a key literary device, the archetype of the seasons. Now my third sentence is going to be my first blending sentence. And again, I showed you that I was taking you through the poem here in the first quatrain. In the first quatrain, the speaker sets the beloved's absence in the spring, a season so wonderful that heavy Saturn laughed and leaped. So in this sentence, we go back to the beginning, as the previous sentence indicated we would, and support the statement about the seasons with textual support, right? The spring part. And I use the words from the poem and I smoothly blend them into my sentence. I only pull out what I need. Then I have analysis or commentary on this. I don't just leave this alone. I talk about why the speaker alludes to Saturn. Associated with old age, here the Roman deity Saturn dances youthfully, his energy emphasizing the miracle of this particular April. So I talk about the effect of the quoted lines, and I analyze the allusion to Saturn even though I don't use the term in my sentence. Sentence 5, I have a transition from this set of textual support to another set of textual support and analysis of it. But the speaker cannot participate in this enjoyment, as he makes clear in the second quatrain. The lays of birds and sweet smell of different flowers, metonymies representing the season's splendor, do not move him, do not inspire a summer's story. So, just as the second sentence said we would, we now move to the second section of the poem, which I'd say right here. The transition shows the contrast. But, so here's the wonderful spring, but the speaker can't participate in it. And then I blend my textual support and my paraphrase to show how the speaker shows he can't participate in the enjoyment. And I have a little analysis of the device of metonymy there in the dashes. I'm not done with my analysis though. I have to comment on the shift to summer. So I do that in this sentence of analysis after this. So do not move him, do not inspire a summer story. This shift to the season associated with perfection suggests that without the beloved, the height of beauty cannot be experienced. Notice I say this shift to the season associated with perfection. This shift is talking about what I just said. Do not move him, do not inspire a summer story. See, it's word glue. I'm starting where I left off and then moving to my next idea so I can show how the things are connected. Also, season associated with perfection goes back up here to this sentence about the archetype of the seasons, right? Summer represents perfection. That's also word glue. Okay. And I talked about that here. Sentence 7 is more textual support and analysis. Unable to wonder at the lily's white or praise the deep vermilion in the rose, phrases rich in imagery and euphony that emphasize the flower's loveliness, the speaker then explains why such admiration confounds him. See, nice active verb there. They are mere figures of delight drawn from you, you pattern of all those. Okay, so we are still moving through the poem, now on the third quatrain, even though I don't say third quatrain, that's where this evidence comes from. My word glue is unable to do these things because I just said that the height of beauty cannot be experienced. Cannot be experienced and unable to are connected. And then I'm blending support from the poem and analysis of devices like imagery and euphony. Now I have more analysis because I just ended with a quotation. They are mere figures of delight drawn from you, you pattern of all those. I've got to talk about that now. So I do it here. Here, I just said, what I just said, reader, see the word here is helpful as a kind of word glue. Here, the speaker transfers his esteem to the person he addresses, defining the beloved as the paragon of the beauty they only reflect, they being the flowers, the lily's white and the deep vermilion and the rose. So I have a pronoun reference there as word glue. I have transfers his esteem because he was praising all the beauty in spring, and now he's saying that his beloved is the source of all that beauty in some ways, or the pattern for it. All right. Sentence 9 is more textual support because I have to talk about the couplet, right? My topic sentence, the couplet cements this thing that the poet's been saying all through the poem, so I have to talk about it, and now I do. Now, after all of these things that I just discussed, now, see, it's a time marker, that word now. Now comes the couplet. Yet seemed it winter still, and you away, as with your shadow I with these did play. I would highly recommend you quote the couplet in your paragraph in its entirety because that's what the prompt is asking you about. Notice that I used a little slash to show where the line break appeared. So we have moved through the poem, and now we study the couplet, which we said we would in the topic sentence. And of course, now I'm fully answering the question. I don't just quote it, I talk about it, and I have two sentences, one of which is a sentence of analysis, and the second is a concluding sentence that pulls it all together. So the turn here, right? We're talking about a couplet in a sonnet. There's a turn. Shifts the poem from spring's delights to winter's death. A turn is going to shift something, and I explain what shifted. Because he was talking about spring, then he was talking about summer's story. Now he says winter. And remember how I was talking about archetypes in the very beginning? Excuse me, let me get that sentence on the screen. Right here, the archetype of the seasons. I'm pulling that together now in this sentence of analysis. The turn here shifts the poem from the spring's delights to winter's death. The speaker remains in metaphorical winter. See, I'm explaining how winter works there as a metaphor. The speaker remains in metaphorical winter because spring is a mere shadow of the absent beloved, an insubstantial form, a reflection of the true substance. See how I'm analyzing the effect of the word shadow there too? Now, right here, this analysis directly answers the question. Now, after going through the poem, I'm getting to my answer. The previous sentences going through the poem set up this answer, which is the way the poem uses seasons, had to be established first. I had to show the poem's use of seasons before I could talk about the couplet. But now we read about the turn, the shift, and how it functions. And this is the direct connection to the ideas in the topic sentence. And that's why this paragraph is coherent. It all fits together. And my topic sentence controls the whole paragraph too. Finally, the last sentence is analysis and then a conclusion that ties back to my answer to the question. Thus is a great word. Thus, therefore, it shows your reader that you're coming to the conclusion. You're done with your analysis. You're bringing it together. It's a signal for that. Thus, the couplet, expressing the speaker's sorrow at the separation, lauds the beloved as the ideal of all delight and beauty, a tremendous compliment. What was it I started with here? The couplet cements the speaker's praise of the beloved as the paragon of all beauty. And now I'm going back to that in my conclusion, after having proven it through analysis of the entire poem. Notice I have an active verb here too. The couplet lauds the beloved. It's a nice active verb. All right, I set you forth on your assignment. Thank you.